On Friday, I raised the question based upon the New York Times article from last week regarding Dianna Russini's claim that she had gotten out of a ticket for texting while driving by FaceTiming a coach who happened to be the coach of the favorite team of the officer who pulled her over. It was an eye-opening story. It was not a good look to either do it or to publicly brag about it. In the New York Times article, there was a comment from the Times company, because Russini had worked for the New York Times through its subsidiary, The Athletic, that it was unacceptable conduct. We were trying to figure out who the coach was. Looked at all the vacancies at the time because it happened on Monday, January 19. That's the day that Sean McDermott was fired by the Bills. That's what she was texting, calling while driving about. Well, turns out there was no FaceTime because a reporter wisely made a request for the body cam footage from the stop. 7 minutes and 10 seconds. It was posted last night. Ridgewood, New Jersey. And it really was stunning in various ways. First of all, it's clear when you watch the video, and I've already had people say, oh, it was edited. They edited out the FaceTime. Look, I've watched that thing 3 times. There's no jump skip. There's no sign of any type of tomfoolery or shenanigans. She just made it up. She didn't let the truth get in the way of a good story, period. And I understand that if you have a podcast, radio show, if you're a guest, recurring guest, and you're going to weave in stories about your personal life, I understand that you may take some liberties, some embellishment here or there to make it more entertaining. Maybe it wasn't an exact quote of what your kids said. You punched it up a little bit to make it funnier, whatever. That's one thing. To just make something up, to just fabricate something that just didn't happen. I mean, think of the differences in the story. Yeah, I got pulled over for texting while driving right after Sean McDermott was fired, and I dropped Brian Daboll's name and Kevin O'Connell's name, and the guy decided not to give me a ticket. Not quite the same punch as, oh yeah, I got the coach of the officer's favorite team on FaceTime, and the coach talked to the officer and said she's a good citizen, and the officer didn't give me a ticket. It's 2 fundamentally different stories. And it was surprising to hear first, she said she was on the phone with Brian Daboll and immediately slipped into, hey, I'm going to, like, you can see it. If you watch the body cam video, she sees an opening to kind of turn on the charm. And it's like, he wants the job. I was talking to Brian Daboll. He wants the job, the Bills job. Just blurted it out. And I don't know how obvious it is that somebody's got the body cam on, but just blurts it right out to this officer. And then, oh, are you a Giants fan or a Jets fan? No, I'm not a fan of either team. Oh, who's your team? The Vikings, unfortunately. Hey, officer, I can relate. And then she shows her phone that she's texted Kevin O'Connell, which the guy seemed to be overly impressed by. But there was no FaceTime. There was no FaceTime. Oh, she also said of the Vikings, their quarterback sucks, which would be awkward if she still had a job reporting on the NFL, but she doesn't, so it won't be awkward. The whole thing leads me to come to a couple of conclusions. First of all, I look at the New York Times story a little bit differently, don't you? That was the opening piece. That was the anecdote aimed at getting the reader to continue to read the story. That was the hook. Sharing the story that she had told on Stugatz and Company while in San Francisco, Super Bowl week. That was the hook. And it was presented as if it was actually 100% accurate. And I wonder at what point there's an obligation to corroborate when someone says something openly and candidly as it relates to something they shouldn't have done. You're making a confession. You're making an admission against your interests. I've already seen some people bashing the New York Times for not getting the body cam, but I look at it and I say, well, why would you need to? She came out and said it. Like, number one, who does what she did? And she actually used that line. Who does that? Well, not even you, apparently. But if you come out and say you did this thing that you shouldn't have done, and it's a horrible lapse in judgment to admit it to the world, like, at what point should the reporters who were working the story say, you know what, there's a chance that this is all bullshit? And apparently, and I never remember what I say while I'm sitting here in the Olive Garden alternate set. See, that's why I'm always honest with you, the audience, because I can't remember what I said. So if you always just tell the truth, you never have to remember when you didn't. And you don't have to carry around, oh, wait a minute, I said this about this, I said that about that. You just say what you believe, you say what you know, you speak the truth, and you never have that baggage. I mean, that is stressful, because there have been times in our lives where we've been in a situation where we've had to say something that wasn't quite the truth. And you learn from experience. This sucks. You're carrying around the guilt, you're carrying around the baggage, you have to stick to this. Screw that. Life's a hell of a lot easier when you just tell the truth. It's more of a selfish thing than anything else. I'm too lazy to carry around a bunch of lies. So anyway, what was my point? My point is, I just wonder whether or not they even had the thought that maybe she made this up. It's so outlandish, and it's so ridiculous that she told that story to make herself look, it's all part of the self-aggrandizing. Is that the word? Aggrandizing? I hang around Sims too much, so I'm never quite sure. Every once in a while, I don't want to fly too close to the sun on wings of Roget's thesaurus. But self-aggrandizing, making herself look more important, making herself look like somebody who has the ability in a pinch to press the button. And it just so happens, it's like an O's trick. It just so happens the coach of your favorite team is somebody that I have access to on FaceTime, and here he is. So I don't know whether to find fault with the New York Times or not. I have a feeling that the inevitable report from The Athletic is going to address that issue. And I wonder, I haven't gone back and looked at the story. I wonder if they've corrected their story. We're going to have to check that out. They should, given their policies on corrections. They are now on notice that what they wrote is false because she made it all up. But I believed, and I still do kind of believe, that the report from The Athletic is coming at some point between now and the start of the 4th of July weekend, because they want to tuck it into the ultimate slow news point, although it isn't really slowing down. But by the end of the week, I hope it will. They may have to go back and revisit and rewrite and reconsider and rework this final report, because to the extent that they were going to include in there scrutiny of Dianna Russini based upon her behavior, admitted behavior, after being pulled over for texting while driving, the reality is she made it up. And that leads to the last point. And look, this story entails a constant balance between going far enough but not going too far, and doing what I think my role is of trying to make sense of stuff. Stuff happens, and I try to make sense of it. And I think it was a given from the moment that the photos that were taken in March of 2020 in a bar in New York were posted and published by the New York Post, page 6. And then Mike Vrabel issued his second statement and wasn't with the Patriots for the third day of the draft because he was going to counseling with his family. That was the moment that it became crystal clear that it would be very difficult, if not completely impossible, for her to work as a reporter again. And that came after the initial denial and then the very strident denial in her resignation letter, which came after there was a toe in the water on Twitter that went very, very poorly. It became clear she can't do that job anymore. All of the facts and circumstances together, by the time the photos from March 2020 came out and Vrabel said what he said and did what he did by missing the third day of the draft, she could not. No one would hire her to be a reporter. And to the extent she was going to do it on her own, Twitter isn't going to be the place, because anytime she tweets something, it is going to be overwhelmed with the usual vitriol and hate and ugliness that we see on social media. But that's the main currency for an insider. So, and she called herself a former journalist. You know, in the text message to the Times where she didn't say it was off the record and she engaged in the communication and called herself former journalist. But there's been a belief she's going to resurface some way. And that's my point here. I've gone from believing it's practically impossible for her to be a journalist again, an insider again. I'm now starting to wonder whether or not she's employable in any capacity in the media. And look, again, I want to go far enough to satisfy my role. I don't want to go too far. But who's going to hire her? If you can't trust anything someone says, are you going to hire them? Hey, I lied to everybody else, but I'm not lying to you. I mean, it really does seem, and I'm not coming to any conclusion here, I'm just raising the question. I would want to know, if I'm hiring this person to be a podcaster, a radio host, whatever, what is the basic level of truthfulness on big matters, on little matters? Can I ever believe what this person is saying? Or is this person only saying whatever needs to be said in a given moment to achieve whatever goal is trying to be achieved? And here's the other problem. Because I know we live in post-truth America and there's a lot of lies, but when all of this stuff has been building and she's chosen to remain silent, it's hard to push back. The longer you wait to push back against any of this, the harder it's going to be. To the point now, because I've been saying at some point she's going to do a sit down with Oprah or whoever, or do a podcast with someone. So at some point she's going to tell her story. Ask yourself this question. How would you have viewed her story yesterday? How will you view it today? Knowing that the FaceTime thing was completely made up. I mean, I think even without knowing that, it would have been fair to be skeptical about anything she says when she does tell her story, if she ever does. I think now, is anybody really going to believe it? Is anybody really going to believe it? Or is it just going to be, that's what you came up with through all these weeks and months of coming up with the best story possible? And even if she admits to things, are people going to believe it? Because she's already admitted to something that she shouldn't have done. She shouldn't have admitted to it. And that was false. So, look, that's all I'm going to say about it. It was already going to be hard to come back from this. And I know we live in an age where people come back from everything. It was going to be very hard to come back as an insider / reporter. No one's going to hire her after what happened. I I wonder now how much time has to pass and will it ever matter? Because I think if you're going to be in a setting like this, if you're going to be talking about sports, if you're going to be talking to people, if you're going to personalize yourself, if there isn't a fundamental understanding that there's some degree of honesty with the audience, how do you ever build an audience? Who's going to listen? Who's going to listen? Who's going to believe? I think that's the problem. And I don't know. If I was advising her, I'd say, tell the truth ASAP, somewhere, somehow. Tell your story and make it true. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. The truth shall set you free. But even then, that may not be good enough, because even if she tells the 100% unvarnished truth at this point, there's a chance too many people won't believe it. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.